Hello and welcome to Trojan Talk. I'm your host, Aaron Taylor. My guest today is Stephen Carmody. He's going to tell us a little about a discovery he's made about tobacco. And thanks for joining us here today. So,
thanks for having me.
And you're a professor here at Troy University, but through some research that you've been working on for quite a while now, you've discovered something new about tobacco that kind of resets the clock on the usage of tobacco. I guess tell us a little bit about this discovery that you've been a part of. So,
yes, sir. So this research project I've worked on now for 7 or 8 years. It started when I was a graduate student at the University of Tennessee. I studied plants and plant use in the past, and it's hard to get around tobacco. Tobacco is an important plant in the past. It was important historically, important prehistorically.
And it's been important in this part of the country as well.
Absolutely. So you can kind of talk about tobacco in the sense of the story of America. So on a lot of different levels, tobacco is important. And I explore tobacco use with prehistoric groups, native North Americans. So tobacco is one of the most important plants that they used in their religious and ritual ceremonies. So reading about its use years ago, one of the first things I remember reading was that tobacco was grown from the Mississippi River to the Atlantic coast, from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico, and was used by all Native American groups that encompass that area that we refer to today as the Eastern Woodlands. When you get into the archaeological evidence, there's not archaeological evidence to support that claim. We've only recovered tobacco seeds from around 100 sites in the Eastern Woodlands. So that doesn't suggest everybody was growing it, as the literature suggests. Yeah. And a lot of the evidence we have comes from the recovery of pipes from archaeological sites. And whenever people find pipes, they refer to them as tobacco pipes. Well, up until this discovery, the earliest evidence for the use of tobacco was about 2,000 years ago. And we have pipes that are 5,000 years old. So there's about a 3,000-year gap between direct evidence.
Somewhere a tool was made for something that there was no evidence that it existed at that point. So, or at least in that usage.
Right. So. And so that raised some interesting questions to me. So did tobacco enter into a pre-existing smoking culture that was here? Or did tobacco start that smoking culture? Did people start manufacturing pipes when tobacco entered the region? But anyway, there were several questions raised by the literature and by the recovery of pipes.
And so what you're able to do, and you worked with some others in going from those questions to using different technology to make a determination that it was used earlier than previously thought.
Right. So traditionally, when we talk about plant use from archaeological sites, we actually recover the seeds of those plants or plant parts that are carbonized and burned, and that allows them to preserve in the archaeological record. So in the 1960s, people started systematically collecting those remains. It allowed us to talk about the plants that people ate, the plants that they drank, the plants that people smoked, all types of plant use plants for transportation, clothing, everything, right? Everything. And so that's when tobacco seeds were first started to be recovered, widely. But again, there's that gap in the data and the literature and the stories that we tell. And so there are other techniques that we can use. And so one technique people had used was pollen analysis. With a high enough powered microscope, pollen's diagnostic. We see it fly around the air, it gets on our cars, and we think it's pollen. But with a high enough powered microscope, you can tell what plant that pollen comes from. And so we were able to take residue from the inside of pipes and through a chemical process reduce that and look for tobacco pollen. And we found, we only tested 6 pipes early on, and we found tobacco pollen in 3. Of course, people said, well, of course you should find tobacco pollen. It's a tobacco pipe. But we still had 3 pipes where there was no evidence for. And then there's another chemical technique, gas chromatography, that people were using, and that's something we started doing and having a lot of success finding nicotine. So to date, we've analyzed about 80 pipes. We found evidence for tobacco in about 40 of those, so just about half.
So you're able to take these pipes that were made way earlier than the current date, and by that you're able to kind of figure out that tobacco existed when those pipes were, even though you couldn't find the the plant evidence of it at that point.
Right.
So, and that's probably one of the crucial elements is it was in that pipe, so it had to exist.
Right, exactly. And so the recent discovery was a pipe that was recovered in the 1940s at the Flint River site. It was part of the TVA excavations. And we knew when we saw the pipe it was old based on the shape of the pipe. Early pipes are tubular. We refer to them as smoking tubes or medicine tubes. We knew it was old, and we tested it. We tested the residues inside, and it came back positive for nicotine. So we knew we had something pretty interesting. To make sure or to confirm that nicotine signature in the pipe, we sent some of the residue to another lab and had them a lab at Ole Miss, and it tested again positive for nicotine. Then we were able to secure funding from an old friend of mine at University of Tennessee to get radiocarbon dates, and it confirmed the date of the pipe was about 3,600 years old. So pushing that date back for tobacco use 1,000, 1,500 years.
And it sounds like that this is possibly the start that you may be able to continue this on, but it sounds extremely interesting and looking forward to hearing what the potential future discoveries of this could be. But we've kind of run out of time here. I'm sure we could talk more about this, but seeing this discovery that using some technology to discover the origins of tobacco are a lot earlier than we once thought. Thanks for enlightening us on this discovery, and maybe we'll bring you back again if you figure out some more in the future. So,
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for joining us on today's edition of Trojan Talk.